Welcome to another episode of Learning Live with AWS and HashiCorp. We are now at episode 5. We're at episode 5.
We're on 5.
Those of you that are new and to the stream for the first time, just some introduction. I'll let my streaming partner introduce herself.
Hi there, I'm Jenna Pederson. I am a developer advocate for Amazon Web Services, and I'm happy to be here again for episode 5.
And I am Cole Morrison, a developer advocate at HashiCorp. Okay, so
wait, hang on just a sec. I know we got a few on our end. I know we got a few moderators in the chat. A couple moderators. We've got Darko. He, I think he's over on Twitch right now. And then Jackie is also going to be hanging out with us today.
Nice.
Is there anyone on the HashiCorp end?
I believe Rosemary should be around, and then I know that Blake tends to hop in time to time. So
yeah,
we've got
say hi to us all, and we'll hopefully answer your questions.
Or at the very least, we'll point to someone who does know. Right? So where we've been going with this, right, is building out a microservices architecture on AWS ECS. And this first pass that we did, well, we got it all set up as without a service mesh. And the second part that we're in is we are now setting it up with a service mesh through Consul. And Jenna, I would love to hear just sort of your thoughts on where we've been and what we've come from. Like, what have our roots been here over these past few episodes?
Yeah, so like Cole said, we started with creating our 3 microservices using ECS, and so we only have 3 of them right now. It's no big deal. Usually we're gonna the scale is gonna be a lot bigger than 3 of these if we're doing this in a production environment, but we're just learning right now. But one of the challenges that comes along with having multiple microservices, multiple services that we have to support and that have to like communicate back and forth to each other is they actually have to be able to communicate back and forth to each other. And so that's where the service mesh comes in to help us facilitate all of that. So last episode, we started by creating our Consul EC2 instances. We set up security groups to support the RPC and gossip traffic that happens between instances and then across data centers. Even though we're only working with one data center, we still had to set that up. We talked a little bit about with Terraform. So we're doing all of this with Terraform, right? We talked about using local values versus input variables. And the differences between the 2 of those. We also gave our EC2 instances access to describe other EC2 instances so that the Consul services can actually discover each other. Our Consul servers can discover each other. We created a load balancer so that that fronts our Consul UI, the one that we'll use. I think we're going to see a picture, or not see a picture. We're going to actually see that in action at the end of today, right?
We are.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yes, exactly. Hopefully. If we do everything right, we'll see it. We'll actually see that in action. And then what we're going to get started with today is, well, we've got a few different things we're going to get started with, but one of the big things that we're going to do today is we left that user data section in our EC2 instance empty. And so we're basically going to be filling that out and creating resources that are required for that section.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great summary of the different code changes we have to do. And it's that thing where you can kind of get lost in the metaphorical weeds, right? Because you do the code stuff and then you come back up, you're like, where were we? What were we doing again? Jenna mentioned it. We're setting up the Consul servers. These are going to be the brain of our service mesh. So in case you get lost, that is it. I will be posting links along the way. And if you would like to follow along, we have our code that Jenna has been meticulously working on over the past episodes right at this link. So you can always grab it. The instructions on how to set it up are right there. And also, if you're interested in catching up with where we are and watching the previous episodes, here is our past episodes list. So just when I see that in chat, I'll just make sure that I plop those in there. And then I guess the final thing I did want to mention was when we're talking here, I'm going to do my best to highlight stuff, but just know that we are streaming across 3 different platforms. So I know sometimes it'll be like, who are they talking to? Are they talking to a wall? Well, technically, I am talking to a wall like in front of me, but yeah, right, yeah. But just know that that is the case. Okay.
Yeah, and so as we're going through today, make sure that you are. We would love to have you active in chat because that helps us feel like we're not talking to a wall. And then you can also get your questions answered, or we can, point you in the right direction to get to the right resources.
And I'm glad that Darko feels like we're talking to him. That's great. Yeah, I'm specifically talking to Darko. Yeah. Okay. And then I know that survey thing we've been doing. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So we at AWS, you may or may not have heard this before, especially if you have listened to our past or watched our past episodes. I've talked about this. We are very customer obsessed. It's something like 95% of everything we do is driven by what our customers need or want, what they ask us for. So your feedback. And so we will have a survey. I'm not going to put it up right now because we haven't done much yet today. But I'll share a survey about halfway through and then again towards the end of our show today. All of your feedback, it's very, very valuable to us. We, both Cole and I, our role is to be able to take feedback from you, your input, and bring that back to the service teams as they are building new services, making changes to services, both on the AWS and HashiCorp side. As part of that, I do have 20 AWS credit codes to give away. So the first 20 people who fill out that survey will get access to that credit code as long as you haven't redeemed one for this show in the past. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you've been here before and got one, you don't get another one.
Darn, but yeah.
Yeah. Darn.
And then I did have one other thing I wanted to say, but I do feel like this joke needs to be highlighted. Why do developers use a dark theme on their IDE? Well, it turns out it's because bright lights attract bugs.
I love the dad jokes. Thank you.
And then the last one more special thing that we're going to be doing in this stream is just a giveaway from one of my colleagues who has a book on infrastructure as code, so patterns and practices just generally, right? So I can just go ahead and show this. Just take a second. And it's a book that in general that's going to cover the ideas of infrastructure as code from a higher level. And if you're interested into getting into more of it, we're going to be giving this away, just 3. It covers it from a high level. So meaning that the principles you learn in it are going to carry across pretty much anything that you're looking to do in this space. Now, of course, Terraform is one of the focuses, but it should give you a compass for using this type of idea and thing in general. Now, how do you get said book? Well, we're going to make it really simple for you today. All you've got to do is just give Jenna and I a shout out on either LinkedIn or Twitter. Just tell us something you learned or something you enjoyed from the stream. And at the end of the stream afterwards, we will announce 3 winners and you will get a book code to get this book for absolutely free. And it's great because as we know, some codes, some tech books can double as a sleeping aid. This one does not. So you will enjoy it very, very well. So cool. Yes. So again, Jenna will bring up that survey again, and I'll probably talk about the book one more time. But that takes us to getting into the stuff today. So are we ready to dive in, Jenna?
I'm ready. My screen is ready to be shared.
Yay. Okay. So here we are at Jen's screen.
Yeah. Let me just set the stage for where we are in our code base. At the end of the last episode, we didn't actually do a Terraform apply, so we don't have those changes in our those infrastructure changes in our AWS account yet, but we do up through episode 3. So today at the end, when we get through a bunch of this, we'll do our Terraform apply and we'll see the changes from both episode 4 and today's episode 5.
Yeah, and it's just part of the process with DevOps.
Yep.
Sometimes you can't get it all in one chunk, and it's just kind of the nature of it, right?
Yep.
Okay, so where were we? We were in that EC2 file, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So yep. One of the big things we added last 2 weeks ago was this chunk of code. Is the font size on my IDE, is that big enough for everyone? Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, yes or no. And I can adjust it. But so we created this AWS instance, our EC2 instance, for our console servers. I can't remember what, I think we did like 2 + 1 is what we did, something like that. It has to be an odd number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically just an odd number. Yeah.
Yep. And then the big chunk, though, that we left empty is this right here, which is going to be for today.
Yeah. And when we decided to go through this, Jenna had a good idea, which came from her TDD background, which was, when you go to build these things out, there is the workflow we talked about in the first episodes, and that'll take you to a point. But when you have a resource like this that has, a lot of different things that you have to go down and do, you can kind of use this as like an index to then branch out and do other pieces and come back to it. And that's exactly what we're going to continue with here. So is there any other recap you'd like to touch on before we get into making all of the TLS certificates?
No, I think we're good to go unless there are questions, but I think we're good.
Okay, yeah. And while we're going this, I know that we've loved hearing from where everyone's watching in from. So just throw it in the chat. Just would love to see what geos everyone's watching in from. And that helps us know. And it's just kind of fun to see. So Jenna, you're in good old Minnesota.
I'm in Minnesota. It's I always talk about the weather. Like that's what we default to talking about as like our small talk. So let me have some small talk. It's about 44 degrees out and like kind of cloudy today. It's kind of crappy. I'm ready for a real spring.
Yeah. And then I'm out in LA, so Pasadena near the mountains, and Darko is almost Seattle. Oh, look at this. We've got some
Argentina
and
Texas.
And then Texas, and also is calling me out for this GitHub link. I will show this right here next. I like this one though, close to US East 1, right? That's a benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's Ricardo. He's also on our team.
Nice.
Hi. Thanks for joining us.
Here's that GitHub repo. Okay, so while people chime in and tell us other locations, the first thing we're going to be making are a bunch of TLS certifications. Now, when Jenna and I were putting together this part, we were like, do we want to go super deep into TLS, into how CAs work and all of that stuff? And unfortunately, if we chose to go down that road, who knows where it might lead. We might never come back, right? That would probably be and could be the whole thing. So because of that, we are going to touch high level. If you want us to go deeper into certain things, we will. But what we're making these certificates for, these are going to create mutual TLS connections for all of the communications within Consul except for gossip. And all you need to know is except for gossip, and you'll see why. It's because we're going to use a different protocol. Now, this is going to be, we can complicate this as much as we want here, but the reason that we're doing this is for what it sounds like, so that the communication between everything is secure. But to do that, we need to make these TLS certificates here, and then we need to pass them to our server so that Consul can use them to be configured. So, Jenna, let's make a new file. Why don't we?
Okay.
Just boring, call it TLS, right? We've got some other people chiming in here. And so the first thing that we need to do, and this is just something that if you worked with Kubernetes will be familiar. A lot of the ways that services will authorize each other is through sharing the same root certificate authority. And the root certificate authority is the certificate authority that signs all other certificates under it. And what we do is everyone who's got one of those other certificates, it's like a membership badge. Because of that, if I see that my server cert is signed by the same root CA as another server cert's root CA, there's a bit of, not a bit, there is trust that can be established. I can be, we belong to the same club. Here's our secret handshake. Yeah, sweet. So that's in essence what we're going to be doing here. So the first thing we need to do is create the root CA. So we have a resource here, and let me just pull this up here. The first thing we need to do is, let me send you the docs for this, Jenna, so that you can see these. And here it is. I'm going to send these over to you, much like how we've been working with the AWS provider. And I just slapped that to you. We have another provider called the TLS provider, and the TLS provider is going to provide us with resources pertaining to TLS that we can then go and make. And so here is the TLS provider. And, you know, interestingly enough, when we use the AWS provider, we needed to explicitly set the provider being used. For this one, we do not. You will still need to do a Terraform init, I believe. But I guess we'll see. It's kind of escaping me if we do need to. But the patterns here that we have here are what we're going to be used. Now, I know that we see some production services, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. That's for this specific example. But when you create a root CA, someone is going to have to create it. And that is what we're going to do. We're going to create that locally. So if you will click on that resources little side navigation drop down caret thingy, as you can see, there's not too many. But the one we're going to be looking at here initially is the private, the private key. The private key here, and it gives a good example usage. And this is where everything begins, is with our private key. So is there an example there as we scroll down? Yes. So we have that there. So this is pretty much it. If you would like to, I think we went ahead and have that code snippet, but if you would also like to type it out, perfectly fine with that as well, Jenna. But that is the first resource.
Yes. I'm gonna copy from ours because we've got some customizations. I want to make sure I don't lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And all you need to know in here is we're using an elliptic curve algorithm as opposed to RSA. And as far as which one we're using the NIST P256 curve. I say those things, so if you want to go and check them out elsewhere, you can indeed do that. So this is going to be our...
I know they're like algorithm things, but I don't know what those are.
Yeah. So good. If people are curious, maybe we can go into it. But this is going to be the key that we use to start deriving everything else. Now we need one more thing here, and that next resource is going to be a self-signed private or self-signed certificate. So this is going to be, even though we talk about public certificates, what you have to know is that that's really actually the public key, because you probably know what a public key is. The difference between a public key and a certificate, although there are many things, the main thing is the extra information that we add to it, as you can see right here, right? So we see the subject, validity period, allowed uses, blah, blah, blah. It's not just a raw key. It is a certificate that also includes that key. Now, with this, we now have our root CA set up. It is from these two things that we're going to use, that we're going to create all of our other certificates. And so this is kind of the, I'm failing to find a better word other than certificate authority, because that's what it is. How clear is that sounding right now, Jenna? Should I elaborate more? Did you have thoughts on it?
No, I think that makes sense.
Okay, cool. And it'll probably make more sense as we create the next thing, exactly how it's being used. So this is going to be the root one. This isn't actually going to be directly used. Like, we're going to use it to check some stuff. But in terms of the ones that the servers are going to be using and the clients are going to be using, they're going to be using their own keys and certificates. And the one we need to make now is the server key. So the key that the actual server is going to use itself. And to do that, we actually just need the same thing we have on lines 2 through 5. We're just going to call it something different. And we're going to use the same algorithm, the same curve type. But as far as the resource name goes, I'll let you name it as you would like to, but probably like something. Yeah, there you go. Nice, nice, nice. And so there's a key. And after that, what we need is actually the same thing, not the same thing again. What we need now, instead of a self-signed cert, is we need a certificate request. So a certificate request is going to, it's going to begin the process of creating a certificate that then we are then going to sign with that root CA. So when we want to do this, it's sort of an in-between here. And as we look through here, we're going to do the same type of algorithm. We are going to use our private key that we just specified on line 28, and we're going to give it some more information that the certificate's going to use as well, such as the subject and the DNS names. Now, these are all basic fields when it comes to X509 and that entire space, but again, we're not going to dive too deep into it. The only thing that I do want to point out here is our IP addresses thing. We do have to specify the IP addresses for which this certificate request is valid for, and these are going to just be the private IPs of our server. So yeah, I always feel like I'm leaving something off when we get to these things. How is this digesting thus far? In chat, feel free to tell me, Cole, that's terrible, or Jenna can be like, yeah, that's great.
So with the subject, does this have to match the one above, or is it they're independent?
I wish I knew the answers to that. But I assume that organization can change simply because when you, it must be able to, because when you get your own SSL certificates, generally the organization you get them from will probably be different from the one that you're provisioning from. So that is my answer there. If anyone has more information on the organization field under subject on TLS certificates, chime in, please. Okay, so that is our intention to create a public certificate. We've kind of aggregated all the information in there, but to make it a public certificate that belongs to this same root CA, we need one more resource, and that is going to be our locally signed certificate. So that's a TLS locally signed certificate, that Jenna just put on here for us. And as we can see here, there's not a lot of that of information being added to it. It's more of connecting pieces, right? We have the cert that we just made between lines 39 up to 49 or so. And then we're specifying the CA that we created up at the top. And we're using those values, and those are going to sign this certificate to say, yes, this definitely belongs to the root CA that we created. And yeah, you're valid. That means more to other things that have these as opposed to it meaning something independently. Now, allowed uses, this is just what it can be used for. There's a lot of different usages, but digital signature and key encipherment are what you need to get this working for mTLS with Consul. And validity period hours are probably what you expect. Now, we went through this pretty fast. Jenna, please elaborate your thoughts and anything that you might have on this.
Yeah, I think my initial thought is like this. I mean, I kind of alluded to this earlier. This is not my area of expertise. So I have done some copying and pasting here. I think that's going to be okay in some cases. And we've done that earlier in some other situations too. But as long as we understand like the core resources that we need to create, and we have this good example to work from, we're able to get to this point today. Yeah, absolutely. And if you have any questions at all around what's going on in this, please feel free to ask. Okay, so that creates all of the encryption resources that we need. So what we have to do now is we need to pass these into our user data. So if we head back over to that EC2 bit, the EC2 file. And let me as you fill that in, I do want to answer a question here on why is Consul Server an array of EC2 rather than an autoscaling group? So that's a very good question. So here's the reason that is because as you can see, when we created those TLS certificates, there was a very important field on those, and that was the IP addresses, right? And the IP, we need to know the IP addresses before the instances are created.
Now, even though I love auto-scaling groups and those are great, they are meant for when you're trying to treat servers as the same thing. Or at least that's my impression of them. They should each be the same. But when you set up a Consul server cluster, the truth of the matter is they are not all the same. One of them is going to be the leader and the others are going to be the candidates or the followers. And we also need those IPs up front. And with the auto-scaling groups, the only way we can do that is after it's created. However, if we choose to go with this approach, what we can do is we can specify the private IPs of our servers before they go live, which lets us get out of this circular dependency / chicken and egg problem, and instead just bootstrap everything up here right up front. So hopefully that answers the question. And so Jenna is just adding in the various fields here. And so we'll see the CA public key, what that is going to be used for. That's going to be what the server uses to check other certificates coming in to ensure that they've been signed by the private key. Because if you've got an encryption, you know that the public key can decrypt the private key can decrypt the public key, and vice versa. Well, by having the public key, we can bring in every cert that's been signed by the root CA's private key and check and make sure that it does decrypt, and therefore it is from our root CA. And then we have our server public key and private key. And these are going to be used for all the mutual TLS handshakes that go back and forth between the servers to set up TLS on both sides. Just tell me when you're good on these, and I'm just sort of like filling time here.
Yeah. And if I mistype things, I just want to make sure I got the right.
Yeah. Take your time.
Our signed cert pen, our locally signed cert, and then the private key.
Yep. I'm just double checking.
Yep.
Yep. That's perfect. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so those are going to be used in a config file that we will make here soon. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and scaffold out the rest of these fields here, right? And so the next ones that we're going to need are going to be a Bootstrap token that Consul uses for the ACL system, and then a gossip key that's going to be used to encrypt our gossip traffic, which we talked about in the last one. So go ahead. Did you have something?
Nope, I'm good.
Sweet. So this actually introduces another provider, because we are using the TLS provider to create those TLS certs, but you'll see we have Random. Random is another provider that provides random things like UUIDs, random IDs, which is very useful. So now we should probably go make the file to where we can actually create those resources. So would you like to make a new file just called, what did we decide on it? I can't remember. Secrets, I think. That was it, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's so secret. Because we are going to be using AWS Secrets Manager in the next one, because we're going to have to. So that'll be pretty exciting. But for now, we just need to make 2 different resources. I can send you the docs if you want to see them. Let me search those. Random. Here we go. And these are just, these are small little things that are built in, which are one of the things I really enjoy about Terraform is there are the providers that provide us with direct cloud resources, but then there's convenience ones like this. You can just click on that documentation tab next to use provider. Yeah, and that'll show us the resources. There's not too many. And hello, Ateki Fat. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for chiming in. And I did see a question here that I missed. Are public certificates costs in AWS? I assume the question here is, do public certificates cost things in AWS?
Yeah.
Does someone on AWS side know?
So I just dropped a link. I think the answer is they are free. I'll drop this pricing into the other chats as well.
Nice.
Just so that everybody gets to see it.
Nice. Yeah, I know that I'm pretty sure the public went through Certificate Manager ours, because I've actually used those a lot because they're so easy to set up with load balancers. But back to what we were doing, we need a UUID and then a random ID, right? So it's called random ID, but it's just going to be a random string of bytes, and the UUID is going to be just a UUID. So why don't we go ahead and make those in that file, and then we can talk about what they are. If you have the thing.
Should I have copied those, or are we just?
They're pretty short. They're pretty short. So the first one here is going to be that, yes, the console gossip key. And this
we're doing, oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. We're doing this one first. I'm going to
sure.
And then we'll do the next one.
Yeah. This is just going to have a byte length, byte underscore length. Yep, of 32, so 32 bytes. Now, this when you first encounter this, if you haven't done a lot with asymmetric and symmetric encryption, the first thing I'm gonna ask is like, yo, we just set up mTLS and TLS certificates. Why the heck aren't we just using those for gossip encryption? Well, the thing is that asymmetric encryption has the beauty of allowing two unknown parties verify each other and figure stuff out and start communicating. However, they are not as fast as symmetric encryption, a la AES, the advanced encryption standard. So because of that, Consul for the gossip protocol uses AES GCM, the AES GCM protocol, and all the AES needs for its key is just a random string of 32 bytes, and that's what we're going to use here. Now, the reason it doesn't need all the TLS stuff is because when you're setting up symmetric encryption, you generally you're doing it under the assumption we're not going to have to set up a lot of what's the correct word for this? Authenticity of the two parties using it, which of course is one of the security problems with symmetric is how do you get the single key to every bit? Well, since we're in complete control of our destiny here, we don't have to worry about that. So there is the gossip key. And that brings us next to the UUID. So we can go ahead and code that resource in. This one's going to look really empty.
Wait a second. What's this?
Random pet. Yeah, we have a random pet provider. It's exactly what you think.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have to play around with that later today.
Yeah. And so this is going to be the Bootstrap token, and we actually don't need any fields for this at all, which has always looked really weird here in Terraform code, but is what it is. And so the ACL system is the admin-facing access control system. How are you going to lock down authorization between the different components of your Consul cluster? And the UUID is going to be your kind of identifier. It's almost kind of like the equivalent of having your IAM role, which you use in your AWS account to access everything else, except this is just what it is in Consul. It's the token. This specifically is going to be a very dangerous, all-powerful token that you wouldn't want to share and or use very much either. So just keep that in mind. And then let me highlight something here. Is TLS requirement for Consul server to function? The short answer is yes. And the long answer is, you can run dev server, I suppose, out of it, but in pretty much every case, you're going to want TLS set up. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so we have our two resources there, which I think fills out the EC2 parts that we were working on, right?
Yep, I think these two here.
Nice. So that's actually all the encryption resources we need to make. Do you have any thoughts that you would like to share with us on that, Jenna?
No, not right now.
Okay, cool. All right, well, now we got the really easy stuff. Like everything else now is just like identifiers. We do need two more things, four more things, but the first two are just a server count and then the name of the data center that we're gonna use here. And yeah. So these are going to be variables that we're going to go and make, and the server count's exactly what you think it is, the number of Consul servers we're going to use. And then after that is going to be just the name of the Consul server data center. Now, this doesn't really have any significance to us aside from just being consistent with it. This is more important when you're doing multiple data centers that can be talking to each other. So that's all that's there for. So not really much more to explain there. And then the last thing that we need is we're going to have these servers discover each other. The AWS gives us this cool thing that's just an auto join function, which means the servers can discover each other. We talked about it in the last episode. But we need to give them a value to discover each other by, and we're going to do that through tags. And specifically, we're going to do that through our name tag. So we've got the tag we're going to join on there, and then the tag value, which is going to just literally be a copy and paste for tags. Now, for those of you out there and just use the same one as the server, if you would. Yeah, there we go, the console server. What would be interesting if you did the database is it would discover the database.
Yeah.
And then that would be kind of neat. I haven't tried to do that, but yeah. So I'll just complete my train of thought crashed. Let me see if Jenna at the train station had something there. As my train of thought just completely crashed. Yeah. Where are you on the train tracks right now? What are your thoughts on stuff?
Yeah, I'm typing stuff. Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, I was going to ask.
Oh yeah.
Maybe this will get you back on track. These values, we're going to use these inside this file that we create in a little bit, right?
Yep.
And are they special, like reserved names, or are we basically reserving them based off of how we write that server.sh file?
The latter right there.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could name those like Jenna's key, Jenna's public key, and yeah, you'd be good. Good question though, because that always when you're scripting is like, is this a keyword or is this just Cole's weird naming convention? It's just my weird naming convention.
I mean, not weird, but I just like to know because sometimes I don't know if there's like some magic going on or if it's like the magic that we're making happen here with how we write it.
That's your software engineer side coming out, because that is always a gotcha when something's a keyword and you didn't know it was a keyword. It's like, all right, there goes my day. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I think we're ready to move on to actually create the script. So this whole cornucopia of variables here is just going to take them and spit them into this server.sh file, which is ultimately going to be the user data file, aka the boot script for our EC2 instances. And we can go and make that script just under.
And I just want to make sure we've already got these variables in here.
Oh, we don't. Wait, we do? No, we don't.
I don't know.
Yeah, we do, kind of. There's one of them.
Yeah, I am trying to remember what I just typed out. Console server count and console DC1. Yeah, I think we do. So console server count.
And the DC1 is probably the worst named variable.
What did I call it then? Did we create?
No. It was. I think we probably could have called it DC name, but that's my fault. So
I don't think we have that in here, do we?
We do not.
Okay, so we should create that right now.
Yeah.
Okay, which means we can probably fix this.
Yeah. There we go. That's maybe DC1 name, just since there's going to be multiple.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, there we go. I like that. That's perfect.
And
naming things.
What's that?
I just the fun of naming things in software development, right?
Yeah. I assume it'll be a string.
Yep.
Description.
Yep, that's pretty much what it is. Let's give it a default though of just DC1.
Yep.
Which is actually, funny enough, is actually the default anyways. But just to be explicit,
Sure.
And then will you remove the list part of the type since it's just a singular?
Oh, yeah, right, exactly. It's not actually a list. And that's what we called it. Okay, so there's our variable that we just created. The console server count, we can see up here on line 56 was there to begin with. So we don't need to recreate that one.
Yeah, that's good. All right, now we're actually ready to make that file, I think.
Okay.
Unless we missed anything. Did we? I don't think so. Okay. Well, let's move on and make the script in the scripts folder, just make a server.sh
Yep.
file. And the reason that's named scripts is because we just decided to call it scripts. And the reason this is called server.sh is because we're just calling it that. You can call it whatever you want. Now this file's got some
special shell script.
Sorry, say that again.
Just it was a tongue twister. Jenna's special shell script
that she sells.
Yep, exactly.
At the seashore. Yeah. So this file is going to boot the EC2 instance up and set up everything console related. There is a lot going on here. So instead of subjecting Jenna to, ages of typing, we're going to just throw it in here.
Like we would be subjecting the audience at home to my typing. We won't do that today.
Yeah. But just to walk through, what's going on here, at the top here, we're going to just install console. That's pretty simple. And then lines 10 through 23, what we're doing is we're pulling in those keys that we created, right? And we're putting them in a specific directory. Now, just so we don't get too hung up on here, the question is going to be, do they always need to be in these directories? And if so, why are you making the directory? They don't. They can actually be anywhere you really want to. This is kind of a convention. We're just going ahead and putting them there, but we are going to specify them in the config file itself. Was that clear enough, or do you think it deserves more elaboration?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we in our right here, RCA public key, we're grabbing that value that we set and then shoving it in, redirecting it into this file.
And I do have a question here from High Ground. Why are we passing encoded user data to the AWS instance? So I assume you mean why we're base 64 encoding it. So we see that little function. And that is because the user data requires to be base 64 encoded. Now, part of this is habit force, I think. I think we may have changed it since to where it will automatically base 64 encode anything we pass to this field. But just in case, we're going to go ahead and put that there. So hopefully that makes sense, High Ground. And if that was not your question, just tell me and I'll answer differently. Okay. So apologies. Back over to our server file. So now we have the big console configuration file. This is beastly. There are many things that you can do here. And in fact, Jenna, do you by chance have that long config doc? Yes, you do. Yeah. There are many things that we can
need this.
Go ahead.
I knew we would need this.
I would like to hear your impression of this and the different fields and what your thoughts have been in terms of going through this.
Yeah, I mean, so you and I talked earlier about like how I mean, when I first saw this file, I was like, holy cow, do you write this from scratch or do you copy and paste this every time? And if you're writing it from scratch, like how do you figure out what should go into this file? Which is when Cole gave me this link, and we'll share this in the chat. But yeah, so there's a lot of different properties, I think is maybe what we would call them. Keys that configure all of this. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but what you said is like generally people will find a version of this and then copy it and tweak it to their needs. And so we've already tweaked it, but we're copying it, obviously. So just keep that in mind, that like you're probably not going to write this from scratch. And you should be using examples.
Yeah, especially because the alternative to this, and I'll just admit it, from a practitioner standpoint, this tends to be my pattern for some of these things. And we have a number of examples on the HashiCorp GitHub of this in use. Because the alternative is you do need to dig through the number of options that we have in that agent doc. And there are a lot. And they're not requisite necessarily you don't necessarily need to understand all of them to get started in terms of using console. There are some core ones, and those core ones we do have here, and we are going to walk through. So hopefully this gives everyone coming to this later a good starting point. But anyhow, let's hop into this. The first thing we've got here, assuming you don't have any other thoughts on
no.
Yeah.
Not yet. I mean, I probably will, but not yet.
Yeah. Yeah, is enabling the ACL system for Consul. This actually doesn't come on by default. And the ACL system now in general is going to be just how you set up authorization between the different components in your Consul server cluster. So in the ACL system, everyone's got a token, right? So every agent has a token, for example. Even the services have the token, even the nodes have a token, and that token has permissions. You can, if you're used to AWS, you can think of it almost identically to, yet again, an IAM role. That's what it is. You make a token, that's your identifier. You make policies that give you permissions. You attach to said token, and it goes about. This is what allows this to happen. You must turn this system on. Now, within this, there's some fields here. Probably the ones to pay attention to the most, aside from enabled equals true, is just default policy. By default, we're going to deny everything, which is a good, safe approach. And then we're going to pass in the tokens that our server is going to use to set this whole system up, which is going to be this Bootstrap token. Now, the agent token is what the agent's going to use to communicate outwards, inwards, and the like. However, because the agent on the server generally does more and all the things, we're also going to just give it the Bootstrap token as well. And so ACL, we have a question here, ACL for service to service communication. Yep. And then we'll also see something else we can do as well in intentions, and hopefully we can get to that side. So moving forward, we have the auto encrypt. Now, this is something really neat. This next field here, as you've seen, we've made a TLS certificate for our servers, and that's good and all. And in fact, for my sanity, can you go back to the EC2 thing real quick? The okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm having like flashbacks of needing multiple different server certs from something else. So never mind. This is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyhow, what we would have to do otherwise without this is when we connect our fruits, vegetables, and any other future services to Consul, they also need a key and certificate signed by our root CA and loaded into those. Well, by using this singular field here, we're going to be able to create those automatically and distribute them. So every time a client connects to our server and our Consul cluster, our servers are going to give them generate and give them a certificate so that we don't have to think about that. And that's awesome.
Okay.
So we then step down into our bind address here, and this is just saying what addresses on our server should we bind our ports to. And this the 0.0.0 saying make it available to the whole server just in general, right? So when we say open up port 8500, we mean open it up to the world and be accessible to the world. And then for the next one, the client address, this is for the actual API. So you can kind of think of bind address as for our business stuff, and then the client address is for people outwards coming in to talk to us as clients. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, so Bootstrap expect, I mean, pretty self-explanatory how many servers we expect. This is important because of the RAF consensus protocol that needs to know how many members it's waiting for before it starts making its elections. And then we see our CA files here. So on 47 and 49, which is us just pointing to those paths that we put those the keys in. Okay. And I think that brings us to about halfway. Let me take a second here. Do you have any thoughts on questions or discussion that you'd like to go for so far?
No, well, I mean, I do have like a comment. Just as we're talking through all this, I'm thinking to myself, like, if a service mesh didn't exist, what would all of this look like? Yeah, and it's a lot, right? So we're the thing that like prompted me to start thinking about this was when you were talking about the auto encrypt, auto TLS, where it's creating those certificates and distributing them to the Consul clients. And to me, it was just like, yeah, I mean, if we didn't have this approach, we would be doing that all ourselves, like manually, right? And that's just one piece of this. Yep. So think of, I mean, the way I'm starting to think of this concept of a service mesh is that it's helping us automate some of the the big pieces that allowed our services to communicate back and forth with each other and to coordinate and also control what those what that communication is, which leads me to the question that I think Anchor has about is this ACL system, is this just for service to service communication, or is it more than that?
So by more to that, do you mean like external facing?
I don't actually know, but sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's what Anchor is asking in the chat.
Yeah. So it's a good question. So maybe be better suited by example. It is both. It's basically communication. It's basically authorization to Consul in general. Both their services are going to use it, right? So the services are going to have a token that says you can talk to this service, you can write to this node, but also any users that are doing admin work within Consul are going to use it as well. So you have this Bootstrap token, and we'll see this when you go to log into the Consul UI, you will use that as your login, like password type thing, right? And if you wanted to create one for me that had reduced permissions, we would also use the ACL system for that as well. So hopefully that answers it. And when you go and you make a request to our public facing load balancer, you would also need to include that token if you wanted to say go beyond it, go beyond and use certain permissions for it as well. So it locks down in terms of the summary is that it is just authorization in general into the Consul cluster. So hopefully my sort of scatterbrained description there makes sense. Did it?
Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay.
I mean, that's helpful for me. If that's not answering your question, Anchor, like please feel free to add more context in the chat.
Yeah. And a techie thought here is enabling mTLS possible with Consul. It is, and that's exactly what we've just done. All we have to do to get that enabled is what we've done so far. Make the certificates, pass them into the server, and then as we've done here, this allow TLS will sort of help set that up for there as well. And it comes from that whole concept that's that zero trust security thing, right? We're doing mutual TLS so that we assume that everything is open everywhere, but if we've got mutual TLS, it should keep that locked down. So let's continue forward. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right, so I think we left off on Connect. Now, this is where I got confused when I came in as a practitioner. When we look at Consul is many things, and it was originally not Service Mesh. Originally, it was Service Discovery and some other different features such as the key value store. When we decided to add Service Mesh, we decided to call it Connect, and that was how it was sort of engineered in. And then later we decided to just sort of straight up call it Service Mesh, but Connect sort of stuck around as how you talk about it. And this is how you enable Service Mesh within Consul. So anyhow, I just thought that was an interesting tidbit. Next thing, data center name. That's exactly what we thought it is. In fact, if you don't specify that, it will just default to DC1, but good to be good. And then where we're storing our data is line 57. And then this encrypt field here on line 59 is just how we specify that 32-bit key. And then our key file is our out of order thing that is the private key of the server that it will use to verify incoming requests that have its public certificate. Okay, and then we get to line 63 here for our retry join. And the retry join, if we weren't using the cool feature AWS has for the servers discovering each other, we would have to hard code the private IPs into this array for every other server, right? But thankfully, we don't have to do that. We've got this instead. And we are just telling it which provider we're using, what's the tag key we're looking at, and what's that tag value they should all have. So this is going to go and look for every other EC2 instance that we've got that it can connect to through the EC2 describe instances API. And if it has that tag, they will join together. Okay. Server is true because this is a server. The nice part, as we mentioned before, is we only have one component we install on your servers. It is the Consul agent, and it doubles as both the client and the server, depending on this option. And then we've turned the UI on for our own purposes. You probably want to have this on in general for administrative purposes.
You would or you wouldn't?
I would suggest it. The UI is very pleasant in my opinion. I hope that we continue bringing more and more of the functionality to it. And then finally, we have 71 through 73, which although these aren't required, I suggest them. And what they do is basically they are hard, like requiring the TLS certificates. That's really it. Incoming is saying, yo, do you have a TLS cert? Outgoing saying, hey, before you leave, do you have a TLS cert? And then the final one there, verify server host name, is let me see that cert and let me see the DNS names that you've got on it. And let me make sure that these are what are on all the servers. So it's that extra layer of paranoia, security, to make sure that it stays. And then we just start Consul. So when Consul installs, it sets up a service file through systemd for us. And the systemd file will just turn it on for us and make sure that if it fails, it'll start back up. It'll put it in through the log system that systemd has set up. So just sort of taking a load off of our back. Okay. I'm going to take a drink of water.
Yeah. So that was a lot. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, especially going through all of this stuff, you're not necessarily going to be writing this from scratch. This will be an example that you can take. Like, I'll push this code up after we're done with today's episode, so you have something to work from. And then there's also this, we dropped it in chat just a minute ago, but this, what is it called? The console configuration. There's a bunch of different, what are we calling them? Keys, and what they mean and when you need them and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to highlight a comment here. Just, listen on an IP bound to a specific interface on the server. You can use the Ghost socket adder library that is a part of Consul. And so he just gives us an example here where you can just it's almost like a little templating thing that you can do. I actually did not know that that's where that was coming from. So props, Mitch, absolute props. I think you might get one of those. I think we might just give you one of those free giveaway books because I did not know that. Yeah. Okay, so let me think about where we are in all of this. I believe that brings outputs. So we want to set up some outputs here. And we need to do this because we do not want to print this Bootstrap token to the public. Yeah. I trust all of
that's like a password, basically.
Yeah.
Is what I'm understanding.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It is all 5 Infinity Stones in one for our Consul cluster. So what we want to do here is just add a couple outputs. We're going to add them for it is escaping me what it is that we're adding. Apologies. Do you remember?
We're going to do the result of the token and then the DNS name, right?
Yes, for the servers. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And the server endpoint we're just doing for convenience. So after we run Terraform apply, we can just click the outputs and go straight to it. And the token so that we can set up a little script so Jenna can copy it without it, having to show it on screen. So there's that. This actually means that we are ready to apply, I believe. Yes, Terraform plan and apply. So all of our hard work here has come to this moment. Unless I'm missing something.
Nope, I'm just looking at some of our notes. Just want to make sure we're getting it all.
Yeah, good idea.
Do we? So I do have some notes about the post apply script. Do I need to create that?
Yes, good.
Otherwise, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's go ahead and make that. Let's go ahead and make that script. This is going to just be a super simple script that's just going to grab the token. But I guess it'll show a neat little Terraform trick if you're building scripts. So
yeah.
I assume you're going to just like paste it versus type it in. Yeah, perfect. So this is a nice little trick here. It's this line 1 where you can run Terraform output -raw and grab the value that we've set up in outputs and then continue to work with that. Now, all this script is going to do is just put it in a file that we do need to ignore. And and then just sort of give a convenience. Hey, this is how you grab it without showing it on screen. This is more for us really than anyone else, because otherwise, if you're setting this up by yourself, you can just go to the Terraform state file and just grab it. But for us, this will make stuff a little bit easier. Cool. That's actually all we need then, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone at home?
Yeah, and feel free to be like, yo, I'm lost.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of jumped around a little bit there. Okay. So we think we're ready to do a Terraform apply. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, I believe so. Why don't we try a plan here and see what happens?
That's what I meant.
Now we are gonna have hopefully some.
Oh boy.
Okay. Oh yeah, just do a Terraform init. This is when I said we added those, whether or not this is gonna do it. Whenever you add new providers, or even when you add modules, you do need to try. Yeah, go ahead and run that. You do need to run Terraform init to pull those in. I always forget that. I guess I got you. You can go ahead and run it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just want to confirm, like, we're doing this because we added that random provider. It's not really random. It's actually, that's the name of it, random something.
That's exactly it.
Where did we add that?
That's the thing, is we didn't for our HashiCorp ones, and for some of them, I actually don't have a clear answer on it when I'm picking my brain. But for the random and the TLS one, at least, the convention hasn't been to add them to like our required providers.
Got it.
I actually don't have a good answer for why that is, but Terraform init, when you add modules or when you add new providers, you do need to run it. I will say that confused me when I first started, because I expected something like Terraform add or something like that. I don't know, just something to add a module versus init again, but we look like we're good here.
Okay.
So now we can resume our scheduled programming here with plan. And this, I will say, this is probably going to take a little bit.
I'm going to have some typos. Just bear with me. Keep talking.
Yeah. Oh, inferred. Well, let's just leave it for now.
Warning. This is an error.
And then undeclared input. Yep. Oh, just because we changed the variable. Yay, Terraform plan.
Exactly.
And if you're interested in a very long red-green workflow, you could write something and then do Terraform plan and then go fix it constantly until it's done. So I suppose there is that. It would be a rather long workflow, just because some of the calls to double check it can be a bit long, but hopefully that's our main thing.
Okay, we're going.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no,
we'll do this, and then when we do the apply, we'll go to a survey.
Oh yeah. That would be perfect. Yeah, because we're gonna need some stuff there.
Yep.
So for those of you in the chat, if you had any questions, we kind of knew this was gonna take a bit here to get this up and running. If you have any questions, that would be great. Let's take a look at this. Invalid index is a tuple with 2 elements. Counter index is 2. Is a tuple with 2 elements. The given key does not identify this collection value.
Oh, this is like an array?
Yeah, this is this. Let's go. Tango is a tuple with 2 elements.
What's that?
2. I'm just trying to understand the error here real quick.
Oh, the index is greater than the number that there actually is.
Yeah. Okay. I think I know. I think it might be that I know what it is. Okay. It's that we are adding more. We have more servers than we do subnets. That is the problem.
Right. We've talked about this before, haven't we?
Yeah, we do. Whoops. So we should probably go fix that.
Like
that'll just take a second.
Okay.
So we should we can actually fix this pretty quickly if we just go to our variables, actually.
Okay.
And go to that private subnet count. it should be in here somewhere. Private subnet count. Yeah. And if we just change that to 3, that should do it. Yeah. And the reason being is this is probably a limitation in the logic right now, which is that we are saying we have X number of servers and we want to iterate them and put them in X number of subnets. And we only had 2 private subnets, so it went out of bounds. So now we're just matching those. In hindsight, we could probably take those numbers and match each other, but
we're talking about these 3 servers.
Yeah,
need to fit into what is now these 3 private subnets.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, are we using this anyplace else where that would affect anything else?
It should affect our locals here. So when we go to, if you want to click on that locals.tf file, yeah, like this is gonna determine the number of private subnets that are created, and which is going to determine the number of server IPs that are ultimately created as well. But I mean, even though it'll create an extra server IP, no, actually it won't. This is the exact number that we need. So it'll affect that. It'll also affect our VPCs. So in our VPCs where we created those private subnets, instead of 2, it'll start making 3. So those are the main things.
Okay.
Yeah. And someone asked if there is an architecture diagram to have a high-level overview, and we do, and that'll give us something to show while we wait for stuff to plan. Okay.
Let me go back and see if this has been fixed. Yeah. What's that?
I was just looking at the second error. It's the same thing.
It's the same. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. 3rd time's a charm. The diagram actually
should be there.
Yeah. We do need to make an updated version that includes the Consul servers, though. I do know that.
Oh, so, sure.
Yeah. So good call out, High Ground. Love the Kenobi profile picture. I will be sure to add that in. Okay. So while we wait for hopefully what will just result in it going up. Okay, cool. So looks like everything's good aside from it complaining about this deprecated argument, which is new to me. I haven't seen this recently, so I will double check into that, but it'll still work. Time for Terraform apply. And during that time, would you like to talk about our survey?
Yeah. Do I have to confirm this at some point, right?
That's true. That's true. Okay. We do need to see everything.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll talk about the survey.
Okay. Yeah. I do want to point out that this is going to take longer than it will once we're done. And the reason being is because we have added more load balancers, but when we get our clients onto Consul, we won't need those. So we'll rip those out, and that should decrease the amount of time that it takes for us to get up. Not that took a long time. So yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're going.
We're
going. So let's talk about the survey. So here you go. One thing I want to point out here is that the link that you see at the bottom here is feedback that we got directly from survey results the last couple of episodes. So we took what all of you at home were saying and we reincorporated it into this this screen here. This is our survey platform that we use. We just wanted to make sure that you know what you're clicking on when you go and look at the survey. So when you fill out the survey, your feedback, we are here to listen to it. We want your feedback, good or bad. Please be constructive though, so that we can, whether it happens to be about the show or it is about future topics that you want HashiCorp and AWS to talk about, or if maybe you have feedback on the products and services that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. We also have the ability to bring that back to our teams and to help influence there. So again, I will just mention that the first 10 people that fill this out, you'll get access, or 20 people that fill this out, you'll get access to an AWS credit code. I think it's like $25. If you filled it out in the past and gotten that credit code, you won't be able to, you can't get it again. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So I think that's all I have in the survey. I'll keep this up for a little bit while we're talking. I have a question that I've been meaning to ask the audience for a couple weeks now. So I would love to hear, like, you can put this in, you can answer this in the survey text box, or you can answer it right here in chat. What sort of, now I got to find my question to make sure I don't have, first of all, is who already has a microservices architecture similar to this, that has, more than the 3 services that we're trying to manage here. So that's question 1, is like, who's already doing some of this? And question 2 is, are you using a service mesh today? And what works with it and what doesn't work? Just kind of want to understand, like, what is helpful to you and what has not been helpful in the past.
It's a great question. And if you're feeling a little shy and maybe don't want to do the chat, feel free to DM either of us, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. And we'd love to hear it. So, all right. I'm going to leave the link up here and the survey thing. Just hope. So we've got some responses coming in here, such as doing microservices, hopefully moving soon to service mesh, and here, and no service mesh yet. Yeah. And interesting one, whether it's Consul or app mesh, so whether you like cherry or green apple suckers, they're both good.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, there's the survey. And while people go into that, do you mind if I do talk about the giveaway again real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So one more time, we are also doing a giveaway. Very, very, very simple here. Let me just make sure that I've got this on screen. And so my colleague, Rosemary, who's just said hello in Twitch, she has written a wonderful book on infrastructure as code patterns and practices. It's a higher level book. So in other words, by higher level, I don't mean like, oh, it's going to be new stuff. It just abstracts the idea of infrastructure as code down from the specifics, so that you can get the generalized patterns that you can then take and use anywhere where you might use infrastructure as code. And Rosemary, if you would like to elaborate any more, I'm more than happy to highlight you on chat. So the way that we're doing for this giveaway is all we need, very simple. Just give us a shout out, myself and Jenna. And then just something you learned or something you thought was cool about the stream, and just hit us up just put it in Twitter or LinkedIn. And at the end, we're going to pick the winners, and I'll announce them over Twitter after the fact. Now, that said, Mitch Connors here, I'm going to go ahead and say, man, if you want to hit me up, I think you got one of them, because you told me something about Consul that I did not know, which was very interesting. But yeah, so that's that. Just give us a shout out on Twitter or LinkedIn, and you'll be entered in, and we'll pick 3 and you'll get them. Okay. So excellent. I'll continue leaving this up here for now. And go ahead, Jenna.
I just was going to say, like, our Terraform apply is done. So if we wanted to talk about, before we go to that, we wanted to show the architecture diagram.
Oh, yeah. That would be great.
Let me see. I think I should have access to it here.
Yeah, it should be. Maybe. Yeah, it should just be in that images thing. Or it should just be right there. Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Now, this is our pre one, right? This is before we've added Consul. So.
Right. And so when we're adding in Consul, is that essentially like kind of a layer right here?
Good question. It's going to actually be in the cert. Visually, I haven't really thought about how to describe it. That is a great question. It's going to be in the private subnets, right? Just like the rest of these. And ultimately, how you'll interact with them is you'll either interact directly with them inside of these private subnets, or you'll come in through yet another public application load balancer to the servers as, say, an admin. So hopefully my cloud craft skills can suffice for drawing that one. But don't count your chickens.
Yeah, we'll get that updated. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure we get that into the repo, and then maybe we can start with that during our next episode to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so how's the old Terraform apply looking?
It was successful.
Oh, we'll see if it was successful,
Yes.
if you will. let's start with low-hanging fruit, and let's make sure that our client ALB is still up and running. So if you want to just grab the client ALB, yeah, that one, and let's just make sure that our fake services are still live. Not that they'll have any impact on it, but it's just kind of an indicator of how our luck will go. Okay, good. So far, we're looking good. So that's good on that one. Let's go and take a look at the other one now. And I'm kind of scared. Will this be there? We'll see. Let's cross our fingers. Come on. Do it. Oh my God, it works.
Hey, you told me it was going to not work on the first try.
I was just being superstitious, Nice. So it works. This is where we'll be able to log in with that Bootstrap token. So let's go ahead and grab that by running that post apply script, if you will.
What am I going to do?
Sorry. Head back over to your terminal.
Yep.
And then we're going to just run bash. So just type bash and then just script / post apply. Yep. And that's going to put that into that token. Now just copy that command, run it. You'll have the token in your clipboard, and we can avoid showing it on stream, which is Rosemary's favorite thing to do, is show all the master keys, right? So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm going to put it in here.
Yep. And you're just going to throw that in.
And we just ignore this for right now.
We ignore that. We could solve that by using AWS Certificate Manager, actually, and setting up a TLS cert in front of it. But as it is currently being not. So we'll log in. Sweet. And we'll see right here, we have our services. Right now, the only services we have are Consul. We can go in, see all the health checks are passing. We don't have any service checks because, we don't really have a service on there other than Consul. So when we create services, so the thing is on a given node, so EC2 instance in this case, you may have multiple services. You can have multiple services running on them for sure. If you go to nodes, though, if you would click on nodes, these are the actual instances themselves. And let me go ahead and put that Git repo up on screen for Alexander, who asked the question. There is the Git repo for the presentation. So these are the actual the different nodes, and we can see that Mr. 3250 has been elected as the wonderful leader to lead us into the next phase of Consul. So that's good. We can always see that there. The key value is a different feature of Consul. You can use a key value store, which is very interesting because if you get into Raft consensus and the way that it does storage, it actually gives you a very robust way to store key value pairs, but it's largely used internally, but we won't. It's one of those things where it's yet another thing Consul does, but you don't necessarily have to use it, and we won't necessarily go into it. So that is that. We can take a look at tokens real quick under access controls. And these are the tokens that the equivalent of an IAM role. And the one that we see right here with global management, that is our Bootstrap token. That is the one that we just used. We also have an anonymous token, and this is just going to serve as the default token that any anonymous requests get, which I believe that's how IAM does stuff too, on like to S3 buckets and stuff when they don't have like any type of authentication. So those are tokens. And then under policies, we have the policies that we attach to tokens, and that's how we go about doing setting specific permissions. Now, obviously, we're going to get into all of these things more because there's not a lot here for us to experiment with, right? So we're just going to kind of see a bunch of empty screens. But the beauty of this is that once we get this set up with our clients, we're going to have all of these things populate in here, and we'll be able to do stuff such as if you'll click on intentions.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we don't have any, but if you were to click create, if you will, yeah, we would be able to say pick the fruit service and say pick the vegetable service and either do an allow or deny, right? Or we could even go to application aware and drill down into a specific path on that API and just hard cut off access there. Now, intentions are for service to service communication. They give pretty good control, but they are not to be confused with ACLs and the tokens and the policies, since those are for authorization just in general across everything in Consul, because both the agents, machines, and real humans are going to use those as well. Okay.
So this would be, just to make sure I'm understanding this, This intentions are for, so you just said there for service to service communication. I want to pose a real life example with our services.
Yeah.
So our fruit service and our vegetable service probably don't need to communicate with each other, but a grocery service might need to communicate with both of those, correct? So that's when we would say that like fruits and veggies can't communicate, but groceries can communicate with fruits, groceries can communicate with veggies.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Excellent.
straight up and down it. Yeah, that is it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's straight up and down it. I will say though, this does not replace your infrastructure's firewalls that you have set up beyond this. So even though you may have those intentions in here, if your security groups do not allow for that, it's not going to matter, right? So the question might be is like, well, where should I control the access then? Really, the sad sort of safe answer is you should do it on both, which will kind of make it feel a little redundant in times, but you know, the more the merrier, right?
And when you say our security groups, are you talking about the ones we've already created here? Or
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So for example, if we have in our security groups to not allow fruits to access vegetables, but we set up an intention that does allow them, it won't matter.
Okay.
But vice versa will. So yeah.
Got it.
And thank you, Techie Thought, for putting up that book link so that people can grab that just to check it out for the giveaway. Okay. Awesome. So there's going to be a lot more context for what we're doing in here once we have stuff live, but I know that we're getting up to time here. We've got about 10 minutes left. What do you think? What are your thoughts so far, Jenna? Any other things you'd like to, aside from the summary, which we should probably do a summary and recap? What are some of the other stuff?
I'm looking forward. So let me step back. The next episode, we're going to actually pull all this together and connect it to our services, our fruits and veggie services, kind of like what I was just alluding to a minute ago. And I'm really looking forward to that piece because I think for me, that's what's going to like connect all of it together in my brain, not just like in the infrastructure itself.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. Yeah. And what do you think about a recap here? In terms of just sort of what we did.
So the lawnmower people are outside my window right now. So unless you can hear me just fine.
I can hear you just fine. I can't hear the lawnmowers at all.
Okay. Thank you for bearing with the work.
Are they looking through the window at you? Or are they like?
Not quite. But yeah. So what we did today. Let's go take a look at our the stuff that we made changes to. The first thing we did was set up those TLS certificates. We started with that root certificate authority. And that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is like it's the root. It's the thing that kind of coordinates across the other certificates that we're creating, or the certificates we're creating.
Yeah, more or less. It's kind of the leader of the club.
Yeah, the leader. Yeah, exactly. Used that before. Yeah, and then we did the Consul Server Certificate and then the signed public certificate in there.
Many certs.
Yeah. What else did we do? We had some changes. Oh, the next kind of big thing we did was we started filling out our user data within our EC2 instance for this Consul server. And so that's where we started with those the certs, added our Bootstrap token, the gossip key. Those are the things that let us communicate between instances and doing that securely. Server count, data center name, and then added the auto join tag, which is our way for the servers to know which one they can communicate with. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's how they go out and they look like, yo, who's got a tag that says blah 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 Consul server? If you do, we're in the same group. So
and then we went into our server.sh file here, and there's a lot of stuff here. Again, like this is a big copy and paste job. Even for when you're doing this, you're probably not going to do it from scratch. At least that's what I'm learning. There's a a document on the HashiCorp docs, the console docs that can guide you through some of what or not some of, but what through each of these keys mean and like when you need them.
And I'll post that into chat here.
Yeah,
while
thank
you continue going.
Yep. I'm not going to walk through all of this stuff, but we set up the ACLs. We made sure that everybody gets their own TLS certificate. We added in the pointed to the public certificates so that Consul actually knows where they are.
Yep. Yeah.
And then what is the other interesting thing here? We set the data server or data center, the gossip key, another key file. Oh, and this retry join. This is where those auto join tags are being used. It's saying like, if you have this tag, we want to hang out with you, basically.
Yep, exactly.
UI config. This was so that we could actually go and look back at this UI, so that we have access to this dashboard and control.
Yep.
And then I actually don't remember what these are about. This is something about the TLS stuff again.
Yeah, it was just when some request comes in or out of your servers, they just double check the TLS certs that you've definitely got one and that the host name matches the server using the cert. So
okay. Yeah. And then finally we tell it to start up the console service.
That we did.
And then we added some outputs. I don't remember where we used these. Or we're just outputting the data. Yeah.
Yeah. We're just
and then created this, which this is so that we don't share the Bootstrap token live on the stream. It doesn't go to your terminal either. It goes directly to this file that we get ignored, and then this was the command that I used to put it into my clipboard for pasting.
Just a convenience thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So less code today overall than previous ones, but the reason why we typed those characters, obviously there was much more to them because configuration files they're config files. There's a lot that goes into them and out of them. Great summary though, Jenna.
Yeah.
So next time we will be wiring up our client services with that. Let me put that survey link up again so that everyone can see that. We'll be wiring up the client services to connect to our Consul server so that we can start using Consul to lock them down, make them talk to each other. And we'll do a little bit of refactor too, because we'll remove some of the superfluous components that we no longer need as a result of adding in Consul. So yeah. Do you like to throw the survey one more time, Jenna?
Yeah. Again, this is our way to improve what we're doing, both during this show and our products and services that we're all working on. So if you have feedback here related to any of those things, good or bad, but always constructive, obviously, please let us know. And we've had some questions come in. We've had one of the pieces of feedback was what prompted us to add this link on this QR code page, specifically so that people know what they're scanning and clicking. Then hopefully it's not malware. It's not. But now you know where the link goes so that you don't have to think that. What else? Yeah, just it's been helpful to see your feedback so that we know what to keep doing or what to do differently the next time around. Another piece of feedback was around the duration of this live stream, and that like 2.5, 3 hours is too long for people to take a lunch break. And frankly, it was too long for us too. So that's why we've started time boxing this to 1.5 hours. And so feedback on that is also welcome. What else can I say? Either way, we appreciate you helping us out.
Yes, absolutely. Any and all feedback, any and all questions, anything. If you just have any just random curiosities, or even if you just want to chat with us, reach out. More conversation, more ideas. So just all works out better. Okay. I believe that brings us to the end. Jenna,
Yeah.
did you have any other
The only thing I'm gonna just mention is I'll push all the code that we've written today up to our GitHub repository so that you can take a look at it and play around with it or use it for your own benefit. You can also send us feedback there. That's also, another area that we'll look at and address questions or issues or whatever there.
Very good point. I forget GitHub issues sometimes. Okay. Well, that brings us to an end. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, all the good feedback and interaction. It really helps a lot. And thank you, Jenna, for all of your coding skills. Hopefully your fingers feel nice and swole.
I did some good copying and pasting today. So yeah, thank you all so much for, spending your long coffee break with us, your lunch break. It's almost Friday, so that's what we have to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I think we're planning to be back here again in 2 weeks from today.
That we are. May 12th.
So we'll get that posted on our events page, the AWS events page, and then also I know like we schedule it in YouTube and LinkedIn just so that you can all like sign up for alerts to make sure that you're there.
Yep.
All right.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.